Hey guys, and welcome to my new segment I'm calling Things Shanie Entertainie Wants to See in Film. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite films, of course, Star Wars. And specifically I want to talk about the whole, not any individual movie, but the whole universe going forward. I want to talk about the things that I didn't like about the first two movies and things I'd like to see them change or do better going forward. Where's my notes? Where's my goddamn notes? Okay, so things I'm tired of seeing. Number one, I'm tired of seeing weak villains. Cinema's greatest villain. Luke, I am your father. Spoiler alert. Right? He was a great villain. Can't top him. You know what made him so great for me as a kid growing up? You know what I loved and was terrifying about him? It was that we didn't see who he was. Darth Vader was this really gigantic figure. He was this all black, wore this terrifying mask, and he had that deep voice. He didn't have to do crazy things to be terrifying. He just had to pinch your neck and it was just... That's all he had to do. That was enough. That was enough. He was an imposing force. He had the red lightsaber. Everyone else had green lightsabers. He had a red one. That was crazy. Red! You know that red's evil because it's like fire. But what made him imposing is that you never really saw him beyond this mask. You never saw who he was. And that led to the allure and the gravitas of who he was. Which brings me to Kylo Mopey Ren. Now, I liked him. I thought his force was awesome. It was sick. The way he stopped the blaster fire, that was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. And he was doing it for me. He really was. His voice was creepy. It wasn't like powerful, but it was just so mellow and cold that I loved it, right? It was just so cold. He was unhinged at moments when he just got all upset. Like, he knew he was a different guy. He wasn't Darth Vader. He was different, right? And then they went and spoiled it all. They spoiled it by just like that whole Dreamweaver. I don't think I can blah 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 blue blue. Or I don't know. You know that whole Vidal Sassoon commercial he did? I'm Kylo Ren. You know, like that's it. It was just like wah wah. it was like you had like, wow, this guy's imposing, and he's just like, can you imagine if they did that in Star Wars? You're a member of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Be like, I don't want to see that. Look at his face, looks all cut up. Gross. Like, we wouldn't want to have seen it, even if he was gorgeous. We didn't want to see it. This is all we wanted to see. We didn't want to see that. And you know what else they did? They took a moment away from Kylo Ren, an actual story moment by doing that. I mean, just when Darth Vader finally revealed himself, it was during a moment where he was dying and he wanted to look upon his son with his own eyes for the first time. He had conquered his dark side. He was able to finally say, I want to put Darth Vader away and be Anakin again. And that was that moment. That was like, let me look at you with my own eyes. And then, son, you look just as good, but it's my eyes, so somehow it's better. Yeah, no. And so that was a moment. It was a very impactful moment to the story. And it could have happened again. Like, when Kylo Ren and Old Man Logan, Old Man Solo, was, they're on the catwalk and he's like, son, right? It would have been sick if we never saw his face. We never saw who he looked like underneath that mask. And they get to that moment where Han Solo and him are like at that, and he says, son, and he tries to change him. He's trying to bring him out of the dark side. I need your help. I have to make a decision. And he pulls off his mask, and there you see his face for the first time, and he's a human being. And he's not doing a Vidal Sassoon commercial because his hair's all disheveled. That would be pretty cool. It would even be more like what's going on in his head if his hair was all messy and not just all like perfect. His hair tells the story. Son, he pulls off his mask. Now we finally see who he is. He's the son. He's Ben. He's Ben Solo for the first time. And he's battling himself, and he's still holding his mask right in his hand. He's like, I need your help. And then son, and then he kills him, and then You know, he's like, puts the mask back on. That would have been sick, because now you're saying, I made my choice. It would have been like, he's different from Vader. He had the same choice Luke did, that Vader did. He chose a different path and chose the dark side, and then boom, put the mask on again. And that would have been sick. That would have been a great moment. For me, that was a huge problem with the entire, with all these new movies, is that they gave you hints of what could have been great moments, and then took those moments away. Another example of this was when Finn, here's Finn, this guy he's obviously emotionally scarred because he couldn't even handle one, like he gets to his first battle and he's like puking in his own like stormtrooper mask because he couldn't see these heinous acts that are being taken place. He didn't want to be part of it. He has a conscience. And then you see Captain Phasma, the person who could have been great and ended up just literally going in the garbage. Just literally going in the garbage. Throw her in the garbage is what they said. She was very imposing. She looked powerful. She had great presence, and even her voice echoed, and it was imposing. And all she did was stand there doing nothing the whole time. You have that moment where Finn builds up the lightsaber like a baseball bat. Cool moment. And like a random stormtrooper, some guy you don't even know, they never built him up. And I don't care. People said, "Oh, he's somebody in the like their books are saying that he's somebody." I don't care. It doesn't. 'Cause I'm watching the movie. I'm not reading the books. So unless you're gonna show me they have a rivalry or whatever, you're not. You know, I'm not supposed to guess they have a rivalry. You're supposed to show me they have a rivalry somehow. And they never did that. He's just some guy, random stormtrooper that comes out. "You traitor!" And then he pulls out this anti-lightsaber stick. Okay, so he pulls out the anti-lightsaber stick, and then they have a very silly battle. That at least, and there's another one. Another moment that here's Finn. He was scarred emotionally, probably physically, and this is his moment to tell his past and the Empire to just get lost. And it was, and the moment was lost. Why? Because he took a beating. He was actually ex machina rescued by a fighter, right? And it's like, come on, man. Here's a moment, again, another moment wasted where he could have, first of all, it should never have been this random guy. It should have been Phasma. They introduced Phasma. We knew all about Phasma, so Phasma should have been the one fighting Finn. Like, maybe he wasn't as strong as Phasma, but they could have showed he had the stronger will and maybe just outlasted Phasma by just take a beating, but just keep getting up. Like, you're not going to put me down and just bam, get back up. You know, like a Rocky sort of like, "Bat, that ain't so bad. You know, come on, Phasma, that's all you got." And then in the end, like, he could finally shed the fear of what tormented him for the entire time, which was this. He was so terrified of the Empire. So there's a moment where it could have just been something that makes the character grow. Instead, he doesn't grow. He doesn't grow on anything because he gets ex machina saved, and it wasn't with anybody who was really particularly strong. It was just this random that we don't even know who he is. Anyway, you know, I don't want to. They should never have these two fight at all in this one. The only time Darth Vader really fought Luke, was at the end of Empire, and they did it in a way that was like, he was so great that Luke's, even as strong as Luke had become, he still wasn't even close to the level. And this they already started you off with. Look at how he stops the lightsaber blast, or the blaster fire, with his hand, and she defeats him. You know, going forward, there's nowhere to go from here. She's already pretty strong. So what is she going to be? Once she learns the Force, what is she? How is he even ever going to stand up to her? Because he couldn't even barely do it when she didn't really have control of the Force. Once she learns. It's I want to see them take Kylo Ren, or even a different character, because I think they pretty much ruined Ren. Maybe put a different character, but and make him this like Vader type. Just don't touch him. Make him don't show too much of him. Let our imaginations are far greater than anything you come up with. Have us build him up, because that's all we did with Vader. We built him up to like this great thing, and that's why I was a little disappointed with Rogue One, because I wished Rogue One had given us more awesome Vader. You know, they gave us that final sequence, which was okay, but there was nothing impactful about it. Like, there was no, like, we didn't care about the people he killed. The first time Luke sees Darth, in that cavern. It wasn't even really Darth Vader, but it was an image of Vader that Luke had created in that tree when he was being trained in Empire Strikes Back. That moment was... I remember seeing Darth come out of the clouds, out of this fog, and it was just like... You know, that moment of like, you're just... Holy shit. I didn't know who it was at the time. I didn't know. I thought it was really Darth Vader. I'm like, whoa, what the... Where'd he come from? Like, just like a ghost just out of the fog. And just... And you felt that moment, right? I didn't feel any of that. I didn't feel any of that because they gave us random no-name characters that he's fighting against, and we didn't care. We were actually rooting for Vader. I like Vader, but you can't root for Vader. You can't. If you're rooting for Vader, then there's something wrong with the way it was framed, because Vader's the evil one. Vader's the one killing your heroes. You could admire Vader, you could love Vader, you could want to see some great action out of Vader, but you can't be rooting for Vader, and that's what I was doing. I was like, yeah, kill him, Vader. Oh, wait a minute. Why should I be rooting for Vader here? No more Death Stars. Can we all agree? Please, no more Death Star. I don't care how big it is. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see a hectagon one. I don't want to see a triangular one. Hey, look, it's different. It's square. It's like the Borg. No, I don't want to see none. And I really don't even understand how they could afford it. I mean, after the first one, that must have been a huge debacle. Can you imagine, just the expense? Like, they must, like, can you even get insurance on a Death Star anymore? Yeah, I want to get insurance for a new Death Star. And they'll be like, sorry, well, that's what, 3 now? Your premiums are going to go through the roof. It's not even worth it at this point. Not believable. I cannot believe that they're going to, like, pull out that kind of money. They would ruin, the Empire would be crushed. It'd be like 9/11. Just a huge financial crushing right afterwards. Just the Empire could not come back from. And just think about how many of the Death Stars killed all those planets. They could be taxing those planets. Please, no more Death Stars, okay? Please, no more monsters with selective eating habits. All the monsters in Star Wars seem to want to eat some guys, and then don't want to eat other guys, right? They'll grab the villains and they'll, eat them right away, and then they'll play around. They'll play with their food if it's the good guys. If it's too silly, don't do that, please. No more of that. So if Star Wars could stay away from that, better framing and just, better character development in general. Bring us another Darth Vader. Somebody who we could, be terrified of. Right, Darth? Right, Shane. Those are the things that I'd like to see. These are the mistakes that I feel were made. It's a great series. I still look forward to them. Han Solo's my hero. I've always loved Han Solo. I didn't like that he died, okay? I get the whole Harrison Ford thing, but I didn't like the way he died. And he didn't die for a reason. He didn't die to protect anyone. He didn't die for a cause. He just sort of died to further some villain's plot, right? When Obi-Wan said, "Strike me down, Vader, I will become stronger than you could possibly imagine." He had a plan, right, to go forward and help Luke. He didn't just die for nothing. Whereas this, he just died for nothing. He was just like, well, I have a decision to make, Dad. Should I be evil or should I join you? And then killed him. I'll be evil then. It wasn't as impactful because at least when Obi-Wan died, Obi-Wan didn't really die. He was dying to become stronger. He was dying to become a Force ghost to help Luke in ways he couldn't as an old man. So that was a miss for me. And he was my favorite character. They killed him off very unceremoniously. And so I'm kind of still pissed off about that. But I will say this for his death. He died the way I always thought Han Solo lived. Han Solo lived on his own terms, doing things his own way, living his life as he wanted to, which might have been the reason why there was a strained relationship with his son. But in the end, when he died the very same way, because he knew he was going to die, and he looked at his son and said, "Hey, I still love you. I'm even going to take death with class and dignity." And that's the one good part about his death that I will say. I didn't like how they handled the ceremonies. I didn't like the way the ending was. I didn't like the framing of the death. I wish they'd given him... I wish he had died for a real cause, not just to further the story. He's too big of a hero to do that. He's not just some random character that you died to further another story. No, he should have died with some class and some dignity. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this. Thank you very much for listening. I really hope that you enjoyed this. This is my first attempt at this kind of thing. I usually just do crazy voices and go, "Whoa, Homer," kind of things. So I will be doing more of these. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah. Oh, am I the only one that sees BB-8 as a soccer ball? Just want to